Hey, in this episode of Franchise Secrets, I have Brian Beers on. He's been a guest before. He's grown an empire with Midas and has built an amazing team, culture, doing very well with that, and has had mistakes that he's made, lessons that he's learned in buying some different franchise brands that didn't turn out how he wanted to. And since then, he has recently invested into a new brand outside of retail, and this is in service. And we got into what did he learn by buying into the wrong brands? What did he like about this new brand? And they had some things that I think are super interesting that I don't really see other brands doing. And I think that they will in the future, including a unique, robust influencer campaign, and then just how they help their franchisees, and not just their franchisees, but kind of the key person in a franchisee's organization. So I hope you enjoy this episode with Brian Beers.
Representing Franchise Secrets, Erik Von Horn.
Brian, welcome back to the show, man. You've been on. Do you remember?
I do. Yeah. I forget. Sometime, I think during the summer, maybe.
I think so. Yeah. And then I got you onto some of my buddies' podcast.
Yeah. Cameron Harold. That was a lot of fun. Appreciate that.
So you're certainly making a big name for yourself out there in the franchising world. You do a lot of different things, but I think one of the things, what are you known for? You're out there on Twitter. What are you kind of known for out there in franchising?
That's a good question. I think it's evolving. I believe that franchising is the best business model in the world for ordinary people to build extraordinary lives and wealth. And it has changed my life being a franchisee and my friends' lives as well that I know. And there's a lot of misconceptions out there about franchising, what it is. People just don't know. They don't understand. They think it's like, they think it's two different things. They think it's like McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, NFL teams. They think it's like totally unattainable, or they think it's like Chuck in a truck and you buy yourself a job and you're just like a corporate employee, And so people don't realize there's this whole business in between that you can build. And, I guess, one of the things I'm known for is I've grown our, it was a family business. My dad, started it as a franchisee in the 70s. I joined in 2010. Took that business from 6 locations to over 30 in the automotive space, primarily by rolling up other franchisees. Like they want to get out. I'm like 6 people's retirement plans now. Pay them every month. Then I'm very reliable. And so we make a ton of money doing that and employ a ton of people and have a really great business. And then that has afforded me the opportunity to now invest in other businesses and other franchises. I'm a limited partner in multiple things in home healthcare. I just got on a window cleaning. We have this other home service line that we're getting into, and so that's my goal out there, is educate people on what franchising really is and how you can build an amazing business through the vehicle.
Well, you've done a great job. I follow you online, your podcast, Twitter, and you do an excellent job communicating out there. And I think it's just there's several more that are kind of, following in your footsteps. And I think it's just great for franchising in general. What was the name of the business that you have, the automotive space?
They're Midas franchises.
Midas. So is that an easy business or a hard business to make money? Like if you get in, average Joe gets in there, is it going to be easy for them to make money or hard? And I would say Crumble Cookie was easy for franchisees to make money in the heyday. Orange Theory was easy for franchisees to make money in once they got to that point where they started growing at a pretty good clip and had brand recognition. The tax business was not an easy business for an average person to make money in. So what would you say about Midas?
Yeah, not easy then. When my dad started in the 70s, it was like, the cash, the wheelbarrow to the cash, register type of model, where completely different now. There's so many moving parts. Cars are so much more complicated. There's been a shortage of techs, for decades. which means we're paying them more and more money. So your fixed costs go up, expectations go up. We need to charge more. Then you have to be able to justify that to customers, why it costs so much to get your car fixed. And things break, wheels fall off, cars fall off lifts. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts that we work with. In some ways it gets easier with scale because we can afford to go through a rough period before we get to the good period, right? It's a little harder if you've only got a few stores to acquire or open up one from scratch. That might lose money for a little bit. But even in the Midas system, 2/3 of franchisees are single store operators. And so, there's us at 33, there's there's 2 guys that have 100. There's guys that there's like kind of now these two division of the multi-unit guys that have 10 plus, the 8 plus. There's probably 50 of us, and then everybody else is single store. Kind of bought themselves a job model, and we've acquired a number of them here in our markets.
So I think it's interesting when franchisees of a brand that is a harder brand to make money in, doesn't mean it's a bad brand at all. It just means it's harder to make money in that particular brand or industry. And then they go out and buy a second brand and they're like, this is way easier to make money in. And they're really grateful for that. Where some franchisees in the new brand or the second brand may be complaining about things that, you as the franchisee that's had it harder or learned more in franchising is like, you guys don't know how easy you have it. Have you kind of experienced the same thing? You're just getting started though in other stuff.
Yeah. So I cannot, listen, the grass is always greener, right? On the side that's, what does it say? It's got the bullshit on it. But so I don't know. Yes, I have my perceptions and my dreams that, getting into this home service business is going to be easier, or have just different, maybe a simpler, less moving parts type of thing. We will see. It's a mobile business, right? Which I'm used to kind of the retail. So obviously different component. People just aren't walking in. We got to go out and earn it. But yeah, I think, I was looking for something that said, hey, what's like less moving parts, but has like core skills that we are good at, which is driving sales, marketing, dealing with technical people, dealing with, it's trades. And so, yeah, I think I hope that is true. And that is the intention here. I'm not trying to complicate my life.
Attention, franchisors and franchisees. There are 2 really important resources that I want to share with you that will help you avoid costly mistakes and increase your enterprise value. The first is our free Facebook group. It's a community that has over 4,000 franchisees and franchisors in it. When somebody asks a question, they get honest and authentic answers from multiple perspectives. You can join the group for free over at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. The second resource I want to share with you is if you're a franchisor and you're frustrated that you're not awarding as many franchises as you thought you would, this is the reason I created the Franchisor Mastermind. If you want access to the information, the techniques that the best franchise sales organizations are using to award franchises, and you want what mature brands have with their playbook of having happy, successful franchisees that grow the right way, then you might want to check out the Franchisor Mastermind. The reason why people join is they want access to my Rolodex, my connections. They want the playbook to achieve both short-term and long-term success. They want to increase enterprise value in their brand. Links will be in the show notes or at scalablefranchise.com. Let's dive into just, existing franchisee that you've been multi-unit, large franchisee, big teams, and how you chose your second brand that you're going to put a lot of time and effort and energy into. I think more as an investor, but still it's going to be probably, it's not just as a small investor in it. From what I understand, you're wanting to build a significant business like you have with your Midases. Because I want this to be helpful for franchise buyers, why somebody that has an existing brand chooses their second brand, and people that haven't bought a franchise before, why someone that is in retail doesn't double down on different types of retail and they choose service-based. And then for franchisors, why you might attract a candidate that has success in franchising already. So I think this will be a good podcast to help all three of those groups. So here you are, you probably could have continued to double down on Midas because it's familiar, it's what you know. What was the initial kind of spark to get a second brand?
Yeah. So we've dabbled in other franchises before. I had 2 other ones over the previous years. Both of them were in a B2B setup. One of them was an auto parts supplier, B2B, selling to other like automotive shops, body shops. Another one was a B2B mobile truck washing. So you got contracts, commercial contracts with like garbage truck companies, like truck trailers. I did not do well in either of those because they were both B2B, which is a relationship-driven business. The owner kind of has to be involved. Like it's not, my skill set is like, I'm going to send out, 2 million direct mail pieces, and we're going to like have a sales funnel, and like we're going to have this sales process, and like, what's our conversion rates and our retention. And I'm like the mass market consumer-facing person. Like that is my skills. That's what I've realized in the failure of these other things. And so I think it's important to really understand that like, what's a good franchise for me might be a terrible franchise for you, and what your skills and goals are. If you're a relationship guy, like you could crush it in B2B, and what I failed. And so
what was a question that you could have asked yourself at that time that would have prevented you from getting into those 2 franchises and learning the hard way, which we all learn the hard way. And I always appreciate when people said, hey, I've had some failures, because I've done the same thing. But looking back, is there a question or 2 that you could have asked yourself that would have helped you understand what you are good at and what you're not good at?
Yeah, I think that's the big one that I preach about now, and I think through is like that the B2C and the B2B are completely different like skill sets and things. And I think it's really understanding what are you more comfortable with? Working with other owners, building relationships. When stuff goes wrong, they call you, you fix it. Like it's all, it's really heavy relationship driven. And I am not that person. Like I don't mean, but like, I don't like wish people happy birthday. Like, I don't know. I just like, you know what I mean? I'm not like that kind of like, there's other people though, they have it in the counter, they're calling you, they're texting you, they're following up, they're asking about your kids and all this stuff. And like, listen, I'm a nice guy and everything, but like, that's just not me. And so like, I am like the mass market giant net, catch as many fish as we can kind of thing. And so, I think really looking at yourself and deciding like, hey, what kind of environment do I thrive in? The other thing that I was like less involved in both of those businesses as well, because I was growing the Midas business. And I think every other franchisee in that business was in the business every single day, building it, working sales, driving sales, doing sales calls, all that stuff. And so I think it was a little, whatever. I should have realized that that wasn't going to happen. Like that wasn't going to be me. And that was a mistake I made, I think.
What was it that was so attractive about those that allowed you to kind of overlook those weaknesses or the
automotive one was like, hey, I'm in automotive. Like we buy parts, we buy millions of parts. Like I know shop managers, like I know how to talk to them. Like, so we were selling a product that we were comfortable with, but it was a completely different type of sale, right? Like dealing with a shop who that guy's been calling the same parts guy down the street for 50 years. And we're trying to convince him, call us now. Like we'll deliver candy with your part. And like, there's like these gimmicks. And so like, it's because I was comfortable in the space, but like obviously the product and the sales and everything was completely different. So I think I was blinded by that. The other one, I don't know. It sounded cool. It sounded simple. It's like, there's no national competitors. There's only one big one. And it just sounded simple and like, kind of was sold on like, hey, with the sales part's easy. It's the operations that's hard. And I thought, well, we're pretty good at operations. And if like they have a call center, they were going to do all the outbound calls. So I was like, they're going to do all the B2B for me. And so I don't have to do it. Right. That was not the case.
So you successful franchise, you looked at some other ones that you bought into, failed. And I've done the same thing, like I said. And then what was different about the process that you went through to buy your next brand?
Yeah. So since both of those mistakes or learnings, whatever, you learn from everything here. So I have a podcast, Business with Beers. I talk to franchisors. I talk to franchisees. I actually started that not long after I sold I think I sold the one business in 2020, October 2020, and I started in 21. So it was after that. And, through that, I just started learning about all these other brands and like what makes a brand successful, what makes a franchisee successful. And, how do you what are you vetted and what things should you look at internally? Like, and so then I was able to kind of develop my own internal checklist to say, all right, I get high off growth, right? Like, my 6 to 33 stores, right? We do $42 million this year. Like, I get high in the growth, the acquisition, like the new stuff. And so, I want to continue to grow in whatever field I can. And we can we'll side table this discussion to why not keep continuing to grow Midas and on that. But so I kind of had this checklist in my head that say, all right, I wanted something that didn't have a real estate component to it, because on the Midas side, we sign huge leases that are personally guaranteed for many, many years. And so I thought, hey, it'd be really nice if maybe we had a business where we didn't have these huge leases. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on roofs and heating machines and paint and all the CapEx, because these are triple net buildings we occupy. And so then I thought, hey, well, wouldn't it be nice if I had a business that didn't have real estate and it didn't have tons and tons of CapEx, but that was sales and marketing driven to consumers, because that's what, I'm comfortable with sales and marketing. I wanted an industry where people were already buying the product or the service. Just like automotive, highly fragmented. There's a million shops. Why would you open up another shop? There's a million shops already. It's because there's a ton of work, right? And so I wanted something that I could come in there. People are already buying it. I would just have to be a slightly better operator or slightly better marketer or a slightly better salesperson in order to capture the business. I don't want to get into having to educate somebody on why they need, a red light beam thing or a cold plunge or, whatever. I think there's a bunch of people are going to make a ton of money with that, and they are going to go through the process of educating the consumer base on why the benefits. That's just not me. That's not my big net, right? So I wanted that, and I wanted to own the Philly market, right? So I wanted to own pretty much the same footprint that our stores in the Philadelphia market occupy, and so there's a lot of brands I looked at where the best parts were already sold, and I said, hey, I want to find something I can buy a bunch of it. And, finally, I wanted a ridiculous amount of support from the franchisor, because if I'm not going to be, totally involved in the day-to-day, because I got all these other things in place, I need a franchisor that I feel is going to be a really good partner in supporting me and my team and the people who are going to be focused on growing the business every single day. And so that was my checklist that I was kind of thinking through as I, learned about new brands and concepts and all that.
So I think it would have been fairly easy for you to not really have that last one high in your priority list of ridiculous amount of support from the franchisor, because it's easy for a successful franchisee to think, I don't need help and support from the franchisor, even though those that have done that before realize that franchisor can train the manager, and they can be the one that's really that other partner in your business, especially if you're doing it semi-absentee. You can lean on that franchisor to do a really good job. Now, I haven't found many franchisors to be amazing at helping the investor have their district operational manager supported through a ton of training and whatnot. But I think that would have been an easy one to kind of give in on. At least it would have been for me. Did you ever have that thought, or is that always important to you?
No, it's been that since the other experiences I had came higher in the list. And not that they were, well, the one I will say is bad. The one I will say I was not happy with, I wanted to end that franchise agreement because I was losing a ton of money, and they, it was threatened liquidated damages, all this stuff. So yeah, I did not feel well supported in that one. And same for the other one. It was kind of I don't know, smaller franchisor, just felt that whatever, I don't know. It wasn't what I expected. And so that one has become more and more important to me. And in that support is the leadership team. I've got this whole due diligence checklist thing I share with people on Twitter.
We'll talk. Where can people find you on Twitter? Because you share a lot of very valuable information on Twitter. So how do people find you on Twitter?
Yep, it's just at Brian Beers with an I. Got an orange background in my head there. You'll find me. And so I have this due diligence checklist. I share it with people. One of my goals is to help educate people, give them confidence in buying a franchise. Here's all the stuff I wish I knew. And the on the top, the very first thing is the leadership. The franchisor has to have top-notch leadership at the helm, because you could have the best business model in the world, but if you got a bunch of idiots running it, or people who just don't have the grit to do what it takes, to make it successful, something like COVID happens, or, the next pandemic, or, whatever, some sort of macroeconomic change happens. Like, those leaders need to be able to see this is coming and work to adapt, to change the business model, to find a new way to continue to win. At Midas, they're working on it with EVs, right? This whole thing. So they're working on this whole EV playbook and how we're going to adapt and how we're going to change. And so when we look at these emerging franchisors, even more, you're working shoulder to shoulder, right? With the founders, and you really got to believe that, hey, these people are smart and they're going to win, and they may not have all the answers now, but I believe that they will surround themselves with really good people, and I believe that they're winners and they're going to do whatever it takes. And so that's like that became higher and higher, especially as I talk, and you do it too, right? You talk to these franchisors, you can tell who the ones that, man, these guys are committed, and you talk to ones that are like, I don't know if this guy's like, gonna do it. And so that was kind of even just in my process. And now, I think it's continued to be a huge thing.
It's amazing. You'd think if a franchisor is getting ready to invest $1 million+ into their brand to become a franchisor and to do it right, that they would be all in. And yet I have conversations every week with emerging brands and some established brands, meaning they have quite a few open locations, and some brands that are on the verge of franchising. And there's a handful of them that they should never be franchising. They don't have the drive. They don't want to do it. They just think this is an easy way to scale and to make a quick buck. And franchisors is not an easy, quick buck for them. It's the long game. And it's delayed gratification. And so those are usually the ones that don't end up very well. They start keeping more of the money for themselves versus invested into great leadership and infrastructure and marketing and all the things that they should be invested into, because they're starting to have to put more money into the brand themselves, doing a thing they don't even enjoy. So at Front Street Equity, we don't even we get an indication that the leader is not all in and they're not coachable and teachable, that it'll never be a portfolio brand of ours. And so I think buyers out there should be aware of that too. I think it's really important to look at that leadership team.
There's this fast growing, there's like a retail concept, and the CEO on LinkedIn doesn't even list that he is the CEO of the franchise, because his main job is he leads some like commercial real estate brokerage, or I don't know, something else. Like that is like his title and his focus. And he's the CEO of the company, and it's like, what the heck? Like, what are you focused on? Like, why won't you be public about it? It's a successful, appears to be a successful brand. Like, I don't know. Funny, some people intentions, but yeah, I think it's huge. I think dig into that, like the ownership and their intentions, and what's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? Like, I'm signing a 10-year agreement. What's this business going to look like in 10 years? Maybe when I want to sell it or get my kids involved, or like I want to continue to grow, I'm signing a lease maybe. Like, I think those are all great questions that I ask them, and I tell people to ask them, is dig into these guys, like grill them. You should be interviewing them just as much as they're going to interview you.
I think that's the thing. Buyers out there realize you should be interviewing them, and also realize they are really interviewing you. The good ones really are interviewing you. You may think they're just selling you. The good ones are not just selling you. Trust me. They are looking for reasons for you to make a mistake, for you to give them a reason to be like, we would not want this person as a 10-year business partner. So it's definitely a two-way street with the good brands and the good candidates or buyers out there. So what do you think about a brand that internally they want to sell to private equity in about 5 years? They get up to 100 open locations and they're going to sell it to private equity. Do you care? And do you want them to be honest with you about that from the beginning? Or is it just not really a topic of conversation and you really don't care?
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, once you sign a franchise agreement, right? Some people think like, oh, it gets sold, everything changes. Like for your business, like you're the owner, you run it, like it doesn't affect you or your terms, and you can continue to run how you want to run. In the Midas space, Midas got sold from the company it was a private company, it was publicly traded, then it went private, then it went to a large holding company. And so ownership has happened multiple times in that. And honestly, each time, it, at least in my experience, it got better. The people who were investing a bunch of money in wanted to continue to grow it. They want to get a return on their investment. But it does bring change. Sometimes it brings leadership change. Sometimes it brings in better people. Sometimes it becomes part of a system that then has synergies in it, right? Maybe economies of scale. So I think there's a lot of good that can come from it if it's the right partner. If their goal is to turn and burn and they want to flip it in another 5 years, and that is their MO, like I'd be concerned, but like, what am I going to do about it? You know what I mean? Like, am I going to sell because it got sold? Like, if it's a good business for me and I've, like I'm making money and I've got leases and I've got great people, like, do I really care what corporate's doing and how those guys are making their money? I mean, I don't, not as much until it starts to affect me. But at the end of the day, even the private equity guys that come in, they need the franchisees on their side. They have these initiatives that they want to do. They want to change the price, update the brands, start this new service, do whatever. Like, they don't run the stores. The franchisees who own the stores or locations are the ones who run it. So they need everybody on board. And so, the more like influence you have in the brand, like, the more, kind of power you have. I mean, we're the 4th largest franchisee. I'm probably the most vocal franchisee. Our family's been in it for decades, right? And so, listen, not that I like have any like end say, but like they want to get me on board with stuff. I want to be a supporter, right? Because I believe in a lot of the stuff that we're working on, and so like as a franchisee, like you can have a say in it too. Like it's not a dictatorship. Like they need the support of the franchisees. So sometimes it could benefit you too. Like sometimes someone who, wants change and thinks that, hey, these guys aren't investing in the brand because, hey, they want to sell it or whatever. The new guys come in, they want they want to implement these things and they want to start to see a return. So, I mean, you can ask a franchisor, if they plan on selling in 5 years, they're not going to tell you.
And I don't think they should.
Yeah, and they should. And they don't know what's going to happen. And like, I mean, you could look at the track record. There's a couple of brands we know of that who like the MO is, hey, I'm going to get this thing into 100 units. I'm going to sell it. And I'm going to do the next thing. I'm going to do the same thing again. I don't know. I didn't look at those brands like, because I want to know the founder. I want to get to know him. Like part of it's like a relationship thing for me. And so I think, I guess if I knew that was going to happen, yeah, I probably wouldn't. Because I want to know the founders. I want to get to know them. I want to build a relationship. I want them to help me grow my business. That's how I would look at it.
So we're going to get to the name of the brand that you bought because I want the everyone to kind of know what it is because they've been getting a lot of attention in general. Just outside of franchising, been getting a lot of attention, which I think is pretty great. But what was it? What were some of the things that you liked about the leadership or how they supported you? What were those things?
Yeah. So in this, in this company, it's, they're my age, mid 30 leadership team, everybody at corporate for the most part, it's millennials. So kind of a modern way of running stuff. I mean, the brand fund this year is going to be almost entirely spent on influencers, Instagram and Facebook and YouTube influencers, not on traditional TV, not on like traditional brand marketing, but influencers, because they know when they're scrolling on their phones, like they're in a commercial, what are they looking at? They're looking at the influencers and the things that come up. And so, I like that. They're doing a number of things in franchising that are, completely different. Nobody else is doing these things in terms of bringing in, outside thought leaders on a regular basis to see franchisees, structuring training and support programs around this like regional director role that I'm, who's going to kind of be my, right-hand man running the business. Dedicated support for that person, which I don't think anybody does, like you mentioned. Like all the things I mentioned earlier, kind of like I believe that, they're going to have issues, right? There's going to be road bumps. Any fast-growing company is going to have issues. Is going to have like setbacks. I mean, I've felt it growing my company, tripling the size of my company in a short amount of time. Like we made a ton of mistakes, but like I knew that like I could figure it out. And so like, for me, I see a lot of myself in the leaders of this other company and this franchise, and I kind of say, hey, if I can figure it out, they're going to figure it out. And so yeah, there's going to be problems, like, but as long as you keep working, like it'll be fine. And so that's what I saw.
Why do you think they hire thought leaders to come in and help the brand, help the franchisees, help the leadership? What's the main benefit for them?
Yeah, I think I've become a big believer in.
Before you answer that, give people an example of what who a thought leader is. You can even give them the name of this one, so people kind of understand.
So the first one they have is John Maxwell, who's like the number one best-selling nonfiction author in the history of the U.S. right now. Has written all these, books on thought leadership, on management, on kind of greatness, and a lot of this centers around having a positive growth mindset. And people may think like, this like falls in that like personal development kind of bucket, and some people might think, that's like kind of stupid. I kind of got into a while ago, and I love it. And this idea that like, if you have positive thoughts, you have positive like thinking, you get your mind right that, hey, I can accomplish anything that I set my mind to, right? You can go out and achieve it. A lot of people have negative thoughts, right? They think, I'm not going to make it. I'm not good enough. My market's not good enough. This brand sucks, blah, 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 blah. They have all these negative thoughts. And guess what? Negative things happen. Like they don't do it. And so I believe just in general, to be successful, that you have to kind of prime your mind and get really good at this whole like Tony Robbins stuff, like believing it's possible, believing in yourself. There's a great quote that I believe that is like, everything that I want is on the other side of fear. And that, I want to, you start a podcast right here. I want to be known. I want to start this podcast. I bet the first podcast you had, you were probably pretty scared, and you're like, I'm going to say, I'm going to stutter. And like, I'm going to ask dumb questions. And like, my camera's not right. And like, I went through all those things too. And like, even Twitter, it's like, I'm going to get on Twitter and like, people are going to criticize my writing, or I'm going to have grammar mistakes, or, but then getting on Twitter and starting the podcast has led me to like some amazing stuff that I'm working on now that I would never get to have. And it's the same thing with starting a business, right? It's super scary to quit your job or to change your life to go start a business. But on the other side of that is this like financial freedom, and it's, spending more time with your kids, and it's like being super motivated every day and fun, rather than like, we're, not looking forward to Monday and driving to work and can't wait till Friday, right? Like, which way do you want to live your life? And so I think, thought leaders by default, like their goal is to make you think differently and to make you see there's like another way to live life that you may not be aware of. And so, for a brand that has a lot of first-time business owners who have never, they're corporate America, they've never been exposed to like these types of ideas, and that probably a lot of the people that we hang out at these masterminds kind of talk about, they bring in a John Maxwell, or maybe they're going to bring in I don't know, Grant Cardone or Gary Vee, or I don't know, people who are out there, they're influencers, they have a platform, people know them, they trust them, they believe them. And that person coming in and telling you, and this is like, here's the principle and how it applies to like your business, that will open some minds, that will start to get people to think differently. And then that's what will get results. And so anyway, I'm a huge proponent. I do it in my business, right? I'm the thought leader in my business. So I'm out there having those conversations with our managers, talking about like growth versus a fixed mindset, and believing what's possible, and all that stuff. And some of the guys absorb it, and then they act on it, and like, boom, we're up 50% in sales because he believed now it's possible, right? And we, fix some other things too, but like, you got to believe that it's possible. And then other people don't. They have all these excuses of why it won't work. Then we bring in another guy, and boom, we double the sales because that guy has the mindset that he can do it. So, I think a franchisor should be bringing in tons and tons of thought leaders, whether it's in person or digital, or it's the founder doing it, but someone's got to help coach people, because it's hard, or if they don't, it's just gonna be a whole lot slower because they're gonna have to figure it out on their own.
I'm a huge believer in that. I love being around thought leaders, and I don't know Grant. I don't know any of those guys that you mentioned personally. I have good friends of mine that are really good personal friends with all of those people that you mentioned. And I'm going to be spending a few days with John Maxwell in a small group setting where it's just very, very casual and a lot of access. And so I love being around people like John Maxwell that just have a very good, they have an ability to communicate like these subjects and leadership and team and whatever it is. Like, they're very good at communicating, and then you can just ask them questions, and it changes the way you think. It changes the way you do business. So I love that that brand is doing that. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about that ops person, because you said they kind of have a whole program or something around this ops person. I'll say this: I am not a fan of semi-absentee businesses that are really not semi-absentee. I think there's so many franchise brands out there that say they're semi-absentee. We've got some of them in our portfolio of brands that are semi-absentee, but the founder has proven it, and they have franchisees that are doing it. And that's the difference between an emerging brand that says they are versus a brand that is actually walks the talk. And then take that a step further, and you have brands out there that say they are absentee. I still have not. I'm going to get proven wrong, hopefully, but I've not found a brand yet that has successfully proven that fully absentee model, because that's just a pure investment. I've had people swear upside down and all around that, no, this is it, this is the one, and then 7 figures later, they lost 7 figures, and they're like, it wasn't what I thought it was. And so someday there'll be a brand that is that fully absentee franchise, maybe, but I haven't seen it yet. But I'd love to hear you talk about the brand that you're involved with, what they do to help that franchisee or investor to be more semi-absentee.
Yep. And so I think the big point, or my big point, is like in the semi-absentee kind of like conversation, is someone has to do the work, right? Like if it's not you as the owner, it is an employee that you have, and that person like needs to do the work at least 80% of the quality that you would do the work. And I think the problem that most people have is they go into this thing and they think, oh, well, like the brand just is going to do it for me. No, they're not. Like they think, oh, I'm going to just hire this store level manager for $50,000 and they're going to do the work. Well, if they could build your entire business for you, like they would be building their own business, right? Like why would they be building yours? And so like it doesn't work at like the way it's traditionally kind of sold, because it's just like you don't have enough like units, or you don't have enough payroll to hire the quality of person that you need who can do that. And so I guess to take a little step back, how I run my Midas business is, it's me, and then I have a COO, and then the COO, we have 4 district managers, and each district manager oversees about 7 to 8 locations. That district manager then deals with the hiring, the customer service, the quality control, whatever, and then they all report to my COO, and he reports to me. And so like, I am technically like semi-absentee in the Midas business. I don't spend a ton of time per week on it. Probably, I don't know how many hours. I don't count hours, but it's not a ton of my time, because I built a really good team of people who do the work that's necessary, right? And so, part of my kind of goal was like, I want to build a similar structure that I have here, that I'm comfortable with, that we're good at, that is tried and true. Like that structure is how the 100-unit guys operate, and guys in fast food. I don't know about the tax business, but I'm sure it was probably pretty similar of like district manager over, 5, 6, 7, people, high quality person. And so anyway, comfortable with that model just in general. That's how I run my business. So can I apply those same principles to this business? And so, in this model, it is, you got to buy at least 5, because you got to hire a guy, they call it a regional director, but it could be a general manager, like whatever. We'll call it a regional director for ease of terminology, who you're going to pay a minimum of $100,000 a year salary, plus bonus, plus he's got a car and a benefits. He's probably going to make $150 or, whatever. And to be able to support that salary, to pay this person, $150 plus you still make money, you need a bunch of locations, right? You can't do it on 1. You probably can't do it on 2. He's going to have the capacity to manage probably up to 7, 5, 6, 7, like pretty standard in a lot of these things. It's like the number of people one person can on average manage. And so that was their kind of model to say, hey, we're gonna have this package. You start with at least 5. And you're gonna hire this guy from day 1. The regional director is gonna be the guy who does the work. And so you need to hire a high quality guy who's got he's got leadership experience. He's got he can hire people, he can fire people, he can hold people accountable. He's intelligent, he's organized, and he is someone that maybe could start his own business, but maybe doesn't want to. But you're gonna pay him well. And so I have 5 of those guys working for you right now. Like I know what they are. I know how to find them. In this brand, the brand will also assist in the selection or in the finding of that person. You know, you as the franchisee obviously hire them as your employee, but they can help with the filtering process or whatever.
So they don't find them, but you can find them, and then they can do some of the interviews and go through the process.
They would assist, because one of the fears of, you know, a lot of, you know, you're a first time business owner. How do you know what to look for, right, in that person? I mean, I didn't use it. I knew some other people that did use it, and they the people that they hired, the people that they hired were pretty high quality people. So who did the training with my guy, and that's how I, you know. That's my take on it. But anyway, ex-military guys do very, very well in this role. Like my COO, 20 years in the Army. He was, you know, special operations. He was chief of staff to a general. I was his first job since he was, you know, civilian job out of the military. And this guy within 3 months was like running was a COO of my entire organization. You know, my guy that's running the other business has worked for me for a couple of years, but he's in the Army reserves. And like very, you know, very process oriented. You know, the government's invested millions of dollars into training these people. They have a lot of core skills that you know, a lot of people off the street don't have. And so, anyway, I'm a huge supporter of hiring veterans, you know, in leadership roles, and they do very well in franchising. The regional director of another investor kind of candidate who's a friend of mine, same thing, special op military guy. Just crushing it so far. So anyhow, that is like kind of the structure of it all. Then we get into, well, how do they support him? And a couple things. One, they sent him to this, like, they're creating this whole community around supporting that role, this regional director role, because they're going to have a whole bunch of people like me who are not totally involved in the business every day. But once again, someone's got to do the work. So that person has to be trained. They have to be held accountable. And so they're creating this whole culture of regional directors around the country. And so those guys did like a 10-day training at HQ, where they were basically like interns for unpaid interns for corporate, doing sales calls, estimating, follow up. Like they lived and breathed the business for 10 days straight. They flew back, you know, started to, you know, they knew exactly what they needed to do to ramp up the business, hiring our guys. We got our guys hired now. We got our flights booked back, so those guys can go to training. The brand holds weekly calls with all of the regional directors. So like they get on call every single week, talk about where they are, challenges, you know, guys are sharing ideas, best practices, and they're all like, because they're all in the same position versus having like, you know, the regional director, you know, guy and hiring a sales guy and how he manages and comps and holds them accountable is a little bit different than the owner operator, who is that person who has, you know, totally irrelevant to him. It's his job, you know? And so I think you want to be in a room just in general of people who are kind of similar to you, and you kind of have similar problems, and thus like the mastermind concepts exist. And so they're kind of breaking it off into these separate kind of, you know, little pods and divisions based on, you know, kind of how it's run and structured, which is super unique. I don't know if anybody else doing that. And we're the guinea pigs. I was one of the first people to sign up on this thing. And so like, I'm aware that like there will be mistakes. There will be things they like will mess up, but like, I'm okay with that. Cause I like being the pilot. I like being the guinea pig, because I also know that I'm going to have an impact. And if something that we figure out here in Philly works, I'm going to share it, and it's going to better the entire system and everybody else involved. So like, I got no problem being one of the first.
Well, I can see why you decided on this particular brand, and I love the culture, the leadership team, how they're making decisions, how they're empowering their team, how they're investing into their franchisees. All that is awesome. It's going to be exciting to see where things go. So why don't you share what the brand is and just a little bit more about them? That way people kind of know who it is that we've been talking about.
Yeah, so the brand is That One Painter. So it's a painting franchise. It's residential and like light commercial work. You know, the current biggest painting franchise in the country is CertaPro. People may be familiar of it. It's been around since the 80s. But you know, That One Painter, it's T1Ps, like the shortened, is sold like, I don't know, 250, 240 territories or something now. I bet by 2025 they're going to be the largest. They're going to overtake CertaPro. in terms at least of units and start to inch up on volume, because they're just growing like crazy for all the reasons that I mentioned. So I'm super excited to be part of it. So we bought 13 territories. We are tied for the largest franchisee, once we get them opened. So we're pretty excited. So then, founder Steve Montgomery, he started the company as just a painter, built it up, started franchising it. I don't know, in 2020 or 2021, I kind of forget the timeline. It's their most successful brand by far. They've now kind of have this other holding company they call it Resi Brands, like residential Resi Brands, and the vision is to build a neighborly competitor, right? Where they want to have all the different home services. Where painting's kind of this foundation brand. They have a window cleaning brand. They've got a garage remodeling. I know they're looking at all the other ones that you can think of. And, with the idea of, we have these shared services, we do the marketing, we've got the call center, we've got really good branding, everything is done in-house, like there's no third-party agencies. And that franchisees can either expand across the country or, a territory in a single brand, or they stack vertically to say, hey, I'm going to have the painting, then I'm going to do, roofing or like handyman or electrical or plumbing or floors or windows or, whatever they end up kind of doing, depending on personal preference and then leveraging the shared services, talent, customer base, marketing, all that. So,
well, they've had some great shout outs on some podcasts. I know My First Million podcast kind of talked about them. And then I know Cody Sanchez, and Cody had a nice thing about them too. And Cody's just a beast when it comes to highlighting different brands and whatnot. So everyone should be following, Cody for sure. She's amazing. So man, I'm excited to see if, a year from now, 2025, if you're the largest by volume.
I hope so.
Who cares about territories? Let's shoot for volume.
We've got big goals. I want 15 million out of mine, and once we're matured, so we will see. But I'm confident the business is there. It's just a matter of us going out and getting it. So,
hey man, thanks for coming on.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.